I saw you look at him with so much affection and love. And that was a look that I had craved, that I had just desired to be directed to me. And I didn't feel like I had seen it.
You're saying you'd never seen it or not recently? If it wasn't like as common as you wanted it to be?
I don't know that I had ever seen it to that level, and it makes sense to me. I'll tell you why I think that was true. Hello, and welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast. I'm Heidi. I'm a couples therapist and relationship coach specializing in mixed orientation marriages and mixed gender identity relationships. Whether you're just discovering this reality or you've been on this journey for a long time, this is the space where your marriage matters, your values matter, and your choices matter. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Complex Couples Podcast, where we talk about all things mixed orientation marriage. I'm grateful today to have Daniel with me again. And today I think we're talking about a really important topic, one that I think all couples deal with, and that is jealousy. One of the complications of mixed orientation marriage for me was that you often hang out with people of the same gender. And so I think one of the complications that mixed orientation marriages bring in is that the same-sex attracted partner is hanging out with people they are attracted to pretty consistently, because culturally we hang out with people.
Or could be attracted to, in theory, right?
Good correction there. Yes, potentially could be, yes. And so today we're going to talk about what that might bring up and ways to deal with that a little bit. So going back in time to when you first told me, one of the big things that we've talked about is that you told your best friend first. And so having that present was really a difficult thing for me to handle, as far as I felt a lot of jealousy that there had been some confiding in someone that wasn't me and that you were close to. And I definitely felt a concern that you loved this person more than you loved me. And so one of the things we've had to work through is how to manage that. Going back, do you remember worrying about that or noticing it in me? What was it like on your side?
I think I knew you well enough to know that that was going to be challenging, because I think I knew that it was important to you to be trusted and to be confided in and things like that. And so, yeah, I think when I told you, I knew that that was going to be somewhat difficult.
Did you ever worry that I would not want you to be friends with this person?
I mean, I think I knew that that was a possibility, that you would be concerned about it. And it wasn't even just with him, but like any guy friends, right? There was this concern that you'd be scared or worried about me being around them. But I didn't spend a lot of time worrying about it, I don't think.
It's funny. I feel like I do remember some worry.
Well, I think there was worry, but it was more because of your response and things that you had said. Because I think that there was a moment in time where, and probably many moments in time, when we talked, especially about my best friend who I talked to, I saw a lot of jealousy in those conversations. And I particularly remember this moment where I didn't know where you were headed in the conversation, but it felt like you were headed towards I don't know if I want you to hang out with him anymore. And I probably had a really strong reaction to that. And I just remember telling you, you can't take him away from me. And I think that was, it seemed, and maybe you should answer this, that seemed problematic to you when I had that response. And again, almost the way I interpreted it is that you wanted me to choose between the two of you, potentially. Again, you never asked that, in fairness here, but I think that was my concern in that moment, that you were going to try to get me to pick for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was an inclination to want to control that, to want to make it go away in a way, because it felt very threatening. And I want to be clear, when we're talking about this was someone who was straight. It was not a romantic attraction. I think it's important that there's a distinction there, because this was a deep friendship, I would say. But romantic feelings were not present.
Yeah, definitely not a romantic relationship, but an incredibly close friendship.
Yeah.
And I could see why in our situation that some people may be worried, right? And it wasn't evident to just you. Everyone around us knows that he and I are really close. And it wasn't that was a surprise to anyone. But yes, it wasn't a romantic relationship.
And so I just want to talk a bit about jealousy in general for a second, because what I was feeling was jealousy. Now, I feel like I didn't really have the tools to know what I was doing in the moment. This is looking back retrospectively and trying to define it, I would say. So I knew that something was bothering me. I don't know that I would have named it as jealousy in the moment, but what I knew was that I was worried that you loved this person more than me, and that I really wanted you to show that kind of affection to me. And I think,
So can I ask here, like, what did you see that you wanted?
yeah, I think that's a good question. So when you told me, timelines start making sense a little more, because you were like, you had told me that you told him 4 or 5 years before me. I started like looking at some of the pictures that I had seen back then. And one of them was this instance where he came over to dinner with his family. And I saw a look pass between the two of you. I saw you look at him with so much affection and love. And that was a look that I had craved, that I had just desired to be directed to me. And I didn't feel like I had seen it.
You're saying you'd never seen it, or not recently? It wasn't like as common as you wanted it to be?
I don't know that I had ever seen it to that level. And it makes sense to me. I'll tell you why. I think that was true. When I really started thinking about it and looking at it from a more objective point of view, he was the first person who really got to know all of you. He was the first person who was given this information about you that you didn't think anyone would accept, or you didn't know how they would react. And I think that having him be so open and loving and accepting, like, I think that's what I saw in you, is just like such an appreciation for what he offered you in that moment.
So in many ways, you saw me open up to a level that you'd never seen me open.
Yeah, I would say before. I did. Would you agree with that? Like,
that's probably very true. I think one of the greatest fears for someone who experiences same-sex attraction is that when they speak about it, they're going to be rejected. And they believe that it's, and obviously this depends on generation and personal experiences, but oftentimes they feel that this part of them should be hidden and no one ever wants to see or touch. And if they do, they're going to reject you and push you away, right? So there's this huge fear. And so you're guarded. Yeah. Always. There's always a little bit of yourself that you're withholding from even those that you love the most. And so, yeah, you probably did see that look on my face. Because when I told him, like, I was scared.
Yeah.
I was really scared that the friendship would be over and lost. And I think one of the reasons I was willing to tell him at the time is because he was potentially moving. And so I was like, okay, I would be devastated and really upset, but I would be fine. We would survive, and this would be okay.
You would be devastated if what?
If he rejected me at that.
Oh, if he rejected, okay.
Yeah. If he was really uncomfortable or.
Yeah.
But then when he wasn't, and again, I felt like at that point that he loved me like even more than he did previously, right? Then yeah, I'm sure there was a massive amount of love that I felt towards him.
Yeah.
And when I say that, even the spouse may struggle with me even using those words. I felt a lot of love. The interesting thing with him, just to give a little background here, is early in our friendship, I remember he came over and he was either driving through the town or something. I don't know. I knew him and we were close friends, but we weren't as close because we hadn't really lived that close to each other. And he gave me a hug. And as he left, he said, "I love you, Dan." And it was one of those things that was like, I really liked him, but like I was uncomfortable exposing that level of emotion, and especially to a guy. And so I think it's important here to recognize that he's really great at showing love, and not just to me. I mean, he's pretty good, and he's really good at verbalizing it too.
Yep. And I would say to me too.
Yeah.
This is not just to you.
No, he's
right?
great at it. He's great at it. A lot of people feel loved.
Yep.
And so anyways, I think that he also taught me that there is a level of friendship and love that can be experienced between two men and women or whatever, and not be anything that's sexual, right? And so I think for me, one of the huge blessings that I've had in this journey is that I think oftentimes men that are experiencing same-sex attraction really long for a really close and deep connection with another man, right? A buddy or a friend.
For sure.
And I think oftentimes that can get confused. Obviously, there are some people who choose to do that romantically too. And I think what gets confused is the fact that you can have a really deep and meaningful relationship with someone
Right.
and it not be romantic.
Yep.
In society, we seem to draw these lines too much to where it's like it's like you're all in and it's everything with one
Right.
person. And anyways, I just learned a lot through that process that wasn't it. So now back to where we were, I did feel a lot of affection towards him. I felt a lot of love from him. And so when he fully accepted all of me, and he didn't change. He didn't stop giving me hugs. He didn't stop saying that he loved me. Like
Right.
he didn't change any of those things.
Yeah.
And so you're right. Like my affection I felt, especially that moment, it was new. And so
Yeah.
what you probably saw, and I don't remember when this was, but like
I do. I
probably think I do.
I think it was the day after you told him, because
Yeah.
you guys had gone golfing the day before, and it was the Sunday after
Yeah.
that, and so it
Okay.
was really
It was really
fresh.
new and
Yeah.
fresh, and it was the first time. And so, yeah, what you were seeing was something that was brand new to me,
Right.
and deeply meaningful.
Right. I think,
Yeah.
and I think that's true. And so when I saw that, there was a lot of confusion for me at the time because I didn't really know what it was about. But I saw it. I saw you look at him like that, and I saw him look at you with a warning glance. She's going to see. I mean, I talk to my audience a lot about trusting themselves. And this was a moment when what I saw, there was something there, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't know what. And I didn't really pursue it. And I could have, but I chose not to. So anyway, like that was definitely something that led to some jealousy, as I felt like there was a lot of affection between the two of you. And I think jealousy is a very normal human emotion that we experience when we're worried about how it will impact us. Before this, we were talking about how I felt a lot of jealousy. And one of the things I worried about was you didn't feel any. Like,
Talk a little bit about that. Like, why do you think that? How does that work? Like, if you're in a jealous state or a jealous moment, like, why is that what you want?
for you to feel jealous of me?
Yeah, or the other person. Like,
Yeah, it
okay,
was-
make it personal. Yeah, why do you
Yeah.
want me to be
jealous.
jealous too?
Yeah. As I was giving that some thought, I think it's because we often interpret jealousy as love, as an evidence of, I love you so much that I'm jealous of you, right? So my thoughts were, he would never be jealous of me and what I'm doing. And I actually think when I look at it, I'm like, it's not necessarily an indicator of love. It's more an indicator of security. And at the time, I felt incredibly insecure. I really was concerned about whether or not you wanted to be with me or if you wanted to be with a man. And I wasn't necessarily concerned you wanted to be with this man, but I felt really sad that you seemed to want to be with him more than you wanted to be with me. I think one of the reasons that I would think that you would never feel that is because at the time, I was very much kind of begging and pleading for you to love me, to stay. I was willing to even give up what I wanted or not even think about it in order to keep you around. So why would you feel insecure? Why would you feel jealous if there was no sense of,
Yeah. Of potential loss.
Yes.
Or anything
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
yeah,
I do wonder, like, how often jealousy can be felt at the same time, on both sides. I don't really explore that much, but like it seems if one person's really jealous, then the other person is fine because they're in the being pursued position.
Yes.
And so you have this jealous person that's like trying to extract and pull and emotionally controlling, I think,
Yes, yeah.
of the other person. And the interesting thing for me, from my perspective, is they're not actually looking. I think when you were feeling jealousy towards me, I don't think you were looking for different actions necessarily from me, but you wanted me to feel a certain way.
yeah.
And you were interpreting my feelings based on some of my actions for sure, but you wanted me to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And in your mind, if I felt, this is again, my viewpoint here, in your mind, if I felt those feelings, that I would behave like you were behaving in a jealous,
Yeah.
longing and pulling way. And
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And I've since learned that no, we respond differently when we're in a fear state of loss of the relationship. Like we both respond very differently to
Yeah.
that, right?
Well, and for me
So,
at that time period, I wasn't worried about our relationship,
no, because you know what's in your
right?
head,
And
right?
so like I was very happy and I was very fine and I intended to stay together forever and like, and raise
Right.
our family. I mean, there was no like nothing had changed in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I probably showed up a little more secure, but I also like you didn't ask this question, but from a person experiencing the jealous like
Yeah.
spouse on the other
Yeah.
side, like to me it feels a little suffocating and a little controlling,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And so what I didn't do really well is respond to that in a way to make you feel better.
Well,
And we talked about this earlier. Like, I don't know if that's my job in that situation or not.
yes, we kind
But
of
like,
talked about like how do you respond to a jealous spouse in a way that it can reassure and really to some degree you can offer, but you can't determine if they're receiving. So you
so from,
mentioned this, yeah.
yeah, but tell me first though, what would have, talk a little bit more what you're experiencing, what you thought or what you needed and what I could have done better at that time
Yeah.
to help. Because I think that there's going to be people listening here that are in my position and they're at a loss for like what they can do.
Yeah, I
So
think
like,
that's
what could have I done better to help you?
yeah, I think the interesting thing is at the time I would have said, I need more reassurance. I need you to reassure me. And the thing is, though, you were offering me a lot of reassurance at the time. You were spending more time with me than we'd ever spent before. You were physically affectionate. There was a lot of reassurance being offered, which might be why I was able to see that, okay, like this might be something I've got to deal with. But I also felt like there was a sincerity in it. Now looking back, I feel what was lacking is actually being honest about the things that I did that made you not want to be with me. Because what I really wanted was for you to want to be with me more. Not wasn't
than I
sufficient
was.
to just want to.
Yeah.
More than you wanted to be with this other person or whatever. Here's something that's really
So there was
important.
comparison that showed up in there for
Absolutely.
sure.
And I think what is important that I've learned from this experience is one, a wife or a marriage is always going to be different than a friendship. A marriage has expectations of you. And when you are a person who craves freedom the way you do, a marriage is going to feel confining more than a friendship. A friendship, there's
Yeah.
just freedom in it naturally. So it's going to be more appealing, and I can't compete with a friendship like that. Whereas a marriage does have expectations of you, especially if you have children and things like that. There are demands that are going to be intrinsic in that.
Yeah.
So the comparison is not helpful.
And how did that comparison show up? What were you seeing that made you feel that I wanted to be with him more than I wanted to be with you?
Oh, just like the light, your face would light up if he comes in, right? And with me, you see me every day. Like, or honestly, just like the way you talked about him, one of the things we talked about is maybe doing some support for others. And you would always want to include him because he was such a support for you. And that made me really jealous. Like, I was like, wait, I want to be your support. I want to be the person that you're like, wow, she's amazing. And at that point in time, I was pretty new at all of it. I wasn't that person for you.
And that was hard for you. I think I do a bad job of getting in other people's head, right? And so like for me sometimes I can see that it would be really difficult for you to be in a position where you hadn't been involved. And when I told this story, you were absent from a lot of that story. We had talked about doing a Voices of Hope video for North Star. And you're right, like when I talked about it, I wanted him to be a part of that. And I obviously hadn't seen any like that. All the videos that we saw on the website, which were incredibly helpful, and I loved them, they were the spouses, just the two of them talking. And I thought, well, there are more people in the stories than the two people, right? Sometimes there's parents, sometimes there's friends, sometimes there's church leaders, if that's important to their story. And I was like, we're missing so many aspects of the story.
Right.
And so you're right. When I talked about it, I would have included him in the story. And at that time period, he had been part of the story for 5 years.
That's right.
And huge evolutions and a lot of personal change for me in understanding, his part of me. and you're relatively new.
Yeah, that's right.
And we do get stuck in our own heads. And I think that I am often not very compassionate about what's going on in other people's heads around me because, as you said, I know what was going on in my head. And
That's right.
never during that time period did I have negative thoughts about you and how you would handle this.
Right.
I was never like, oh, well, she wouldn't do this as well. But you didn't know that. And I think it's interesting as we've talked about relationships, it seems that there's often in a relationship a person like me and a person like you.
Yes,
right?
yeah, for sure.
And so and oftentimes it's not necessarily, sometimes it's swapped where,
Absolutely.
the same-sex attracted spouse has more characteristics that you have. And so the characteristics that I have are definitely more, I'm a fairly confident person and I'm pretty comfortable with what's going on in my head. I probably think that everyone understands and everyone operates just like I do. And so I guess my advice to someone that's like me is that you need to be a little more compassionate and thoughtful and take a step back and recognize that in my situation, I would have done a lot better at the time had I thought more about how you were experiencing this instead of me trying to explain or tell you why you shouldn't feel that way. Because I think I probably spent a lot more time trying to explain to you why your feelings were inaccurate.
Yes,
It was
right.
like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way.
Yes.
Or I don't feel that way, so you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Or you shouldn't be jealous because I spend most of my time with you.
Yes.
But I spent a lot more time, I think, trying to convince you that your feelings were wrong instead of trying to understand them.
Yeah.
I still probably wouldn't say that I needed to fully accept them and believe them because I think in many
that's
cases your
true.
feelings
I think
were
that's very important.
your feelings can't be inaccurate. That's what you were actually experiencing. But the way that you were interpreting things was probably inaccurate.
Right.
Right? Your concerns about jealousy with me were probably unnecessary. I wasn't going to leave because of this friendship,
Yeah.
for example.
Yep. And you cared for me as well as him. And I think that's what I started to believe that before I felt it.
Yeah.
I started to I think the way I determined, I really was like, okay, what do I want here? I want him to want to be with me.
Yeah.
So how am I going to show up in a way that he's going to want to come home to? And I think one of the temptations is to just kind of give you whatever you want. And I think that was at first, okay, just accommodate. But then I didn't consider me. And so that didn't feel good.
Well, it didn't. So let's talk through that a little bit. And then I do want to make sure we get back to just the concept of love and
right.
how that can work among a group of people.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember that because I remember when not long after I come out, you basically came to me and you're like, and you verbalized this. You're like, hey, whatever happens, I'm here.
Yes.
Basically, you almost gave me license.
I basically give you license to do whatever you
go,
wanted.
Mess around, and then you still take me back. And I remember thinking that's cute and so nice that you would say that, but that's the wrong thing to say.
Right.
I remember thinking that, and it wasn't because I was going to go do anything because you gave me that, but I was I think I recognized that time period that you were in a really challenging position, and you were trying to figure out how to make it work.
So first I became very accommodating, and then I was like, okay, I have to actually honor myself here too. So how can I be someone who he wants to come home to, but also who is not afraid of having expectations? How do I make room for both of us in that?
Yeah.
My own desires and yours. And the conclusion I came to is I'm like, he might love him more than me. I don't know. But I think he can love both of us. So what if I just made room for him to love this other person? And I just was okay with it, as long as it wasn't crossing certain lines.
So I do want to talk more about that, but I kind of want to step back a little bit here.
Oh,
if that's
okay. Yeah.
Just in the expectations here, because you did go down this route of hey, whatever happens, I'm going to love you, right?
Yeah.
But what is an expectation in a marriage? Or when you say that there are things that are expected of you, what is that and how do you properly set those? Because I have this aversion to any language that shows up as control.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
I really have a really deep freedom. And you see that in good and bad, right? Because I think that I have a strong belief that I get to determine what I do in life. You've heard me talk about it all the time that I don't believe that this experience of same-sex attraction is something that I chose, but I get to decide what I do with it. And so, but that also shows up on the other side where like if people try to tell me what to do, like I really, really hate it, deeply hate it, right?
Yes.
And so when you talk about expectations in the marriage, where is that line from it being controlling versus where it's almost inviting?
Yeah, I would say
Right?
that is exactly what I would say is it's more of an invitation. It's not by force, it's not by control. I tried to get better at offering an invitation. For instance, like something as simple as when I wanted to be with you, instead of saying, hey, I really want to spend time together and then expecting you to facilitate that, which was a big pattern for us.
Yep.
Instead, I would ask myself, okay, what do I really want here? I want to just talk for a while. So I would just be like, hey, tonight, do you have some time? I would love to just spend an hour on the couch with you, just visiting. And I would just invite you and say, do you have time for that? When would be a good time? So also offering some flexibility, not at 6 o'clock, will you be there?
Yeah.
But more of like a when would be a good time? If not tonight, maybe tomorrow. But advocating for what I wanted in a way that said, this is important to me. How can we make it work?
Yep.
I
I
think
think that advocacy is a really important way to do this here because I do think that some people could disguise control in invitation or in like,
Oh, man.
right? I mean, they do it all the time.
I've done it. I can think of the times when I have tested you with this, right? There's been other times when it's been more of a test. Like I'm going to plan this or I'm going to do this and we're going to see how he responds.
Yeah.
And if he responds like,
This.
oh my gosh, I want to so bad, then I'll know he loves me. But if he's like, well, I don't really want to, but I will. But that's also love. Like, I don't really want to, but I will because I love you. That's still love. But like we do these tests for our partners, I think, a lot. And that's different.
I think, and we can't, this is a big topic that could probably be a whole course, but I think freedom is really important because I think you want people to want to be there.
That's right.
And I think trying to trap someone in a relationship, like that's never going to end well.
No.
Even if they stay, right? Because like I do have a really deep loyalty part. And if you have someone that has a deep loyalty, you might be able to trap them. I definitely don't feel trapped. I'm here very happily. But like you could potentially trap someone like that. I think in our religious context, I think that you could also use some of our deep beliefs in like eternal families and covenants and marriage. And you could use those to manipulate and trap people as well.
Yeah.
I think anytime you're doing anything to control the other person, they are never going to experience love.
Yeah, they're not going to want. And that's what this is, right? Love in a desire sort of way of wanting to be with you, wanting to spend time with you, that it's going to work counter to that every time.
But I do think that vocalizing what's important to you is really needed.
Yeah.
Like it's important for me to know what you desire and what you value or things that I'm doing that are problematic to you that create stress and unhappiness and, you know, and pain for you. I think it's really important that we talk about those things. And I think some of the way that I think about it is when you're speaking from you're probably in a realm that you can speak to with authority, right? I feel this way, or I'm experiencing this, or do that because.
And I'm seeing you do this, and I'm interpreting it this way.
Yeah.
Yep.
But when you start talking in the conversation, you're doing this, you need to do this differently, or you feel this way, or you don't feel enough love, or you're not feeling affection towards me. I need you to feel that way.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like we're trying to speak and use. I'm definitely not a trained professional. I don't know all of these things, but like when you're controlling or when you're trying to tell the other person what they're doing and what they need to do differently, I don't think it really works really well. And I think
I would say all those things are things that we've had to address over time so that you do want to be with me more, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. I think we have come to a position where we want to be together more. It's not so much about loyalty.
Yeah.
Because that is ultimately obligation, which isn't the same thing.
It's slavery. It could feel like that versus the freedom, right?
Exactly.
Like if someone's controlled into a place they may act a certain way, but it'll feel more like they're captive than they're there willingly. And
that's right. And I think that's really, so going back to jealousy, I think that's really where, even though I felt jealous, I was like, I want to offer freedom because I'm hoping that if I offer freedom and I behave in ways that I view as someone you would want to be with. Maybe you will. And offering invitations and advocating for what I wanted was helpful in that.
Yeah.
And I will say I felt as I allowed more freedom, I got more in return to some extent. There's certain things that came later, but I felt like the more I allowed space for you to love this friend deeply, the more love I felt coming back to me. And I realized love is not limited. It's not like this quantity that people have more or less than. It's more expansive. And the more of it you allow, the more of it comes back to you.
So how'd you reach that point? Because I could imagine that it was scary to allow me to love someone else.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And I would say the only way I really managed it was honestly, one was a simple choice to just believe that you loved me no matter what. Just like, how would I live if I believed that? That really helped me with the fear component, because often I'm protective because I'm worried you don't love me. But I was like, I'm just going to choose to believe he does. And how would I behave if he did? And then I started seeing things you would do that I actually interpreted as love that I wouldn't have otherwise. So that was hugely helpful for me. The other thing was I had an experience where I felt like you didn't see it, and that was really annoying to me.
Where I didn't see how loving you were being?
Yeah, I was like, wait a second, where you didn't see that I was allowing you to love this other person and have him be a part of your life as well as me.
Yeah.
And just accepting it and embracing it. And I was so irritated. And I had a moment where I was really angry that you couldn't see it. And actually, we'd had a fight about it, and you came back to me and you said something like, you know what? You're right. I've always said actions matter more than words. And I do see that your actions have made room for this. And I haven't appreciated it. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that was really meaningful to me. Yet there was still this part of me who was like, grr, like, I just want him to look at me the way he looked at him that one day. And I was really like cursing God, actually. I was like, God, I just want him to look at me like that. Is that too much to ask? And in that moment, in my mind's eye, I could see like this older gentleman out of the corner of my eye who was looking at me with so much love and so much affection. I don't know who he was, but I knew that love was present for me. Essentially, it was like a little gift from God saying, this love is present for you. And the man said to me, I'm looking at you like that. Let that be enough.
More of a heavenly love.
And it was more of, I just felt like the love of like a broader, deeper love that came from heaven, so to speak, that was present already. And that really helped me get through and recognize that like I have an abundance of love that's offered to me. So how can I love like that? And that is a love that was also included expectations, I would say. So, yeah.
Yeah, love it's an interesting thing. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands too, the love that we're talking about is not romantic love.
Right.
And so I think that there's a really important distinction here. And love is really expensive. You mentioned that. And I think that that's one thing that I had to learn. And I think I believed it previously. If you think about it, every time you have a new kid here, we have 5 kids, like we had the second one and we're like, okay, oldest child, you get half the love now, and you get a third, and then you get a quarter. That's not the way it works, right? There's a lot of love, and the love continues to grow and grow. And I think that even since those early days here of us coming to terms with all of this, like I have more friends, and I feel like like that I would say that I love.
Yes.
And love deeply, right? And I think that we've been on this journey that, at least this is my experience too, is that like we've been on this journey to recognize that love is expansive, and there can be a lot of love and a lot of really deep and great relationships. And I think that's really important, because I think it's almost impossible for one person to give us everything we need.
Yeah, as we've talked, like seeing this through your eyes and how meaningful what this friend offered you was, I can have an appreciation for what he offered, that it was less threatening to tell him at the time than to tell me, because there's just more at stake in a marriage, right? And I'm so grateful that he was able to offer you that kind of outreach. And I think it made you more capable of loving. I really saw a change in you. So it really does take a village. And sometimes we expect one person to do it all, or that our spouse will put it all on us, in my case, right? And I think that there's so much beauty from allowing more space for that. And it's been good for me too, because I've recognized friendships with male people is important to me. So as long as I'm keeping certain boundaries in place, and you are too, like, it's broadened our ability to have deep and abiding friendships with other people, either opposite gender or same gender. And
we learn so much.
It doesn't have to be inappropriate.
Yeah, and it's not, because you can learn and get so much from so many people.
Right.
I like you. It does take a village to. They use that often to raise the children, but I think it does take a village just to have a meaningful and fulfilling life, and like really,
and marriage.
Yeah.
And
so, and I would just maybe some unsolicited advice here to the people who are in mixed orientation marriages. I think oftentimes when the spouse that experiences same-sex attraction, there's a longing for a relationship with the same sex. And I think that can be really scary. And I see can't pass judgment everywhere here, but I actually think that it's really important that that's figured out. Because I do think
between partners
and in a marriage, right? And make sure that there are understandings of, boundaries or expectations. But I think that the person, like in our case, like, it's my responsibility to make sure that I am honest and that I have integrity towards my words, and I commit to you that the romantic relationship is just between us. I'm the only one that can really know if I'm stepping outside of that or starting to step outside of it. And I think if I were to start to step emotionally outside of that, I need to be honest with myself right away at the beginning that, hey, I'm stepping towards something here. Is that really what I want to do? I'm the only one that can do that or know it. But you could try to police.
Very true.
And you could try to control certain things, but you're going to control the wrong things. And you're going to miss things at times too, because you don't know what's going on in my head or my heart or my feelings, right? So it's my responsibility. But I can just tell you from my personal experience that those friendships, way beyond, we're talking mostly about one friend here because that was the jealousy-like thing that started that we had to work through. I have a handful of relationships, and some are with other men in a similar situation or other men who are gay, and those relationships are important to me. I'm grateful that they have them, and I don't find them dangerous just because they're also have the same experience that I have here. I don't view those as dangerous, but I know myself, right? And if they were ever headed in that direction, I also recognize that I have a choice.
That's right. Yeah.
And I need to act.
Yeah. And as a spouse, I've recognized the ability to ask you to cut things off and to not be with people. But ultimately, that's not going to change how you feel about someone so it's more, I have to actually look at what can I control, which is me, and what decisions am I going to make in light of the choices you make. It becomes about that.
We have to really be our best self.
That's right.
And we need to invite the other person. You can never force someone to love you.
No, you cannot.
Right? You can entice by being your best self and showing up in the very best way that you're willing to do, but you can never control the other person.
And I think in conclusion, I would say that jealousy is more of a scarcity mentality. It says that there's a limited commodity of love to go around. Often. Now, I think there are good reasons. Jealousy shows up for good reasons, and you have to look at what they are, because maybe there are things happening that are inappropriate that really need to be addressed. And that's a whole different story than what we're talking about today. But as far as friendship and that kind of a love, there is an abundance. And if you can have that mentality around it, I think that is really helpful. But well, thanks for being here today. I appreciate it. And I love you.
I love you too.